Hi everyone, welcome back. This is Karen with Naturally with Karen. I'm doing this live stream on Facebook so I can be outside somewhere really beautiful like the stained glass piece in front of the Hillside Whole Foods Cooperative in Duluth, Minnesota, where I just did a little bit of shopping. But it's going to eventually get up on the Naturally with Karen YouTube page, so I like to do it this way. I can be outside until we get our subscriber numbers up. So if you're watching this on YouTube, please take a moment and hit the subscribe and hit the bell so that way you'll see more videos. Let me just preface, I'm the author of a book called Detox and Heal Your Thyroid. And if you don't know anything about it, stay tuned and listen to what I'm going to share. But this is a really powerful live stream today because I'm going to go into a little bit of a history. The book is going to show you how to get your thyroid working again in a way that's very different than allopathic medicine with handing out a synthetic thyroid like levothyroxine or Synthroid. Absent a really significant hit to the head or a massive brain tumor or a boatload of medications, there's a lot of ways that you can heal your own thyroid, and you can get your thyroid and the corresponding axis aspects to your thyroid, like your pituitary, your hypothalamus, your adrenals, all need to be working really well, and they would have been working really well for you, but for a couple things I'm going to go into in this live stream. So Detox and Heal Your Thyroid is an ebook, and it's $5, meaning that you go to the website at naturallywithkaren.com and you click on it and you order it, and then it comes right to your email and you just click and open it up and you can start reading. Okay? What is it going to give you? It's going to tell you 3 major foods to avoid and why. It's going to also explain to you what you need to do in terms of, bless up Joanne, good to see you, my shaman Joanne. So in 1989, I graduated from West Valley College in Saratoga, California. And during that time, I was there for almost 5 years. I took a lot of my general education courses, and I loved psychology, and I loved philosophy, even though I didn't think I would as a person in her 20s. Well, when I took basic general psychology, I thought, wait a minute, I've got a great instructor, Don Johnson, and he was teaching a course that is another one of those courses that just changes your whole life. And that particular course was called Physiological Psychology, and another one that he taught was called Psychology of Addiction. So those are 3 courses I took from Professor Don Johnson: General Psych, Physiological Psych, and Psychology of Addiction. I had no idea how important they were going to be in my life later as a coach, an author, and a speaker. So why do we have so many people being diagnosed, or not even timely being diagnosed, and dying from brain tumors? Well, we know a few things. We know that the cell phone towers and the 5G are a really big problem. Bless up, Pam. Good to see you. Good to see everyone here. So the 5G, and there's a free summit that you could watch. It's going around, a documentary similar to The Truth About Cancer, to educate you a little bit about EMFs and RF, which is radio frequency technology. We were never meant to live under this kind of a technology that's constantly signaling and pulsing your brain. So that's definitely a factor. But we also weren't really meant to live in a way where we were eating a lot of food drugs and food chemicals. We live to eat anymore instead of eat to live. So what has all of this done? Well, now when we have babies in hospitals, they end up getting a test called a PKU, a Parker-Karen umbrella, PKU, which checks for a type of a metabolic disorder is what it's known as, right? But that card, that blood stain actually goes on a card, and it's kept in a catalog all about you for the rest of your days and probably on beyond that. Why do we have genetic mutations and brain tumors, and why do we have pituitary cyst nodules and tumors? Why do we have an epidemic and a pandemic? Pandemic means it's all over the world. It's a panorama of thyroid issues. Why is it, if it still may actually be number 2 in terms of medication being dispensed in the world right now. It's at least in the top 5 or the top 10. I know medications kind of fluctuate because we've been a society that really tends to prescribe a lot more pain medication, and that should also tell you something about us. Okay, but we are raising children more and more and more immune compromised. So they're starting off with metabolic disorders. They're starting off with slow thyroids. And even though they receive that PKU, which checks for a type of a severe metabolic issue like PKU, they've got a slow thyroid. Now, once you add the vaccines and you add the baby formula and you add all the foods that they eat, and we know what children have eaten since 1980, I've seen it. I was born in 1961 in the Bay Area, and I think I'm probably one of the last generations left to see people that actually grew up eating real food. If you read Dr. William Davis in his book called The Wheat Belly, you'll know that Dr. Davis breaks it down, and he says it's been about 45 years at the time of the writing of the book that the wheat grain has been changed. So when a lot of my clients tell me they've got celiac disease, I say I don't really believe in that. The entire world really cannot digest the product that's being sold today, which is wheat. The grain has been manipulated. It's much smaller. It's abrasive. It destroys your esophagus, your esophageal sphincter, and it's too much for the body. So all in all, if you consider the stress, the abandonment, the trauma that our children go through, the diet that they're living on, the way they're starting off with formula and moms are going back to work, and this isn't a blame game. This is let's figure it out, okay? When clients got on my table for body work, and I had moved from California where I had worked in the law in very high places, and before in California, and I would put my hands on the side of their head, I could feel them energetically. Sometimes I could even feel them very slightly physically, and I wondered, was I feeling it just energetically, or was I really feeling it physically? Okay, Zach is one of the people, but there's been many people that have come to my table or to my home or that I've met out in public out here on the streets where I've said, you know, let me just check something for a minute, and I do a little check. So that might sound really far out there to you, but in actuality, when I was being raised, I was being taught that my right hand was more powerful of a scanner than anything else that's being introduced today. And I'm going to try to get to a place where I can actually see, even though the background's not as beautiful because the sun was glaring at me a little bit. And we love the sun, right? Jason Charles, good to see you. So, oh no, I didn't want to do that, cancel. So, pituitary. Pituitary is the gland, the pea-sized gland in the middle of your brain that has got to make thyroid-stimulating hormone. Why wouldn't it make thyroid-stimulating hormone? Why would the pituitary and your pineal gland, that pine cone shape that we see on top of the staff that the Pope carries, that we see on a lot of the architecture, why wouldn't our pineal and our pituitary gland and our hypothalamus, the Holy Trinity, which is up inside of your head, your cranium, packed up there for you so you can be anointed? So not just a pouring of oil over your head. Never mind that. Okay? Frankincense and myrrh is great, and it's wonderful, it's spiritual, it's mystical, it's all those things. But to become anointed actually means, as we're talking about this on a Sunday, for those who really want clarification, what I believe it means is that the Holy Trinity of those three glands, the hypothalamus, the pineal gland, and the pituitary, are working in synchrony, and they're doing what they're meant to do. They're meant to keep that TSH, the doctors call TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone, from your pituitary flowing down to your thyroid gland so that it can start to activate the other hormones in your thyroid. You've got at least 5. And those hormones have got to make what a doctor calls ATP, or energy. I'm trying to reconnect. There we go. Has got to drop an atom, and it's got to convert and make it. So if you can't convert, you're going too slow, your metabolism is too slow, your diet needs to be changed up. And yet I run into people all the time that blank out when I say, it's not one pill. It's not one coaching session. It's not one thing. It's not just taking CBD. It's not just smoking cannabis. If it was just smoking cannabis, I know people in Jamaica that have smoked cannabis every single day of their lives, and they have cancer. So cannabis is wonderful, but it's not a singular approach. Vaccines are not the only reason. Cell phone towers are not the only reason. It is a combination, or what I like to call an amalgamation of your daily habits that are not going to sustain you, okay? So we are raising our children by farming them off. There's a term when you go to prison or jail called a sent off. And I know that because my former partner had spent time in jail, and he would, people would be called a sent off. And so it's kind of something that it kind of resonated, in terms of what I think about how children must really feel at a time in their lives when they're so vulnerable. We're very, very, very vulnerable, as Rudolf Steiner suggests, between 0 and 3, because that's the time that the etheric connection is still extremely connected to the mother. So we force that break, or society or the system or the matrix or however you want to think of it, forces that break, that snap. It's a snap. It's a disconnect from the mother by saying they'll get over it. Don't coddle them. For those of you that remember those words, don't coddle them. Don't spoil them. And even my own grandmother, who really started changing later after teaching me in 1965 to develop my intuitive abilities to unseen levels today, and that's why I'm here to share, because I want everyone to be able to use them. But she would say, don't sit there and pick them up all the time and spoil them. And I said, you can't spoil a baby, Grandma. It just doesn't happen. They're babies from 0 to 12 months, and from 12 months to 36 months, they're a toddler, right? So we live in a world that has everything codified, everything certified, everything credentialed. And while we're so busy putting on a white lab jacket and a stethoscope and putting people in big fancy magnet machines and drink our contrast solution, and you've got a hemochromatosis, diffalosis, difficile, we are so busy being caught up in the game that we're not really healing and helping our people. We have women today like myself that are elders that want nothing more than to be able to be in a council of elders. Your pituitary gland, in order to keep it working and to keep it giving you the kind of intuitive abilities that I enjoy, that I want you to have, means that you need to do detoxification. And I'm not talking about just run to the store and buy a cleanse. That's a great start. But I'm talking about making a plan specific to what you need. And you don't know what you need because the majority of the time when you go to the doctor, even if they've brain scanned you and put you in their machines, given you every kind of a blood test, a whole glut of blood testing. You've had the CBC, you've had it all. Those are great. They're helpful, and they're even more helpful in certain instances. And I will let my clients know in certain instances, hey, I'd really like to see a CRP. I'd really like to see an A1C. I'd really like to see a liver enzyme. I'd really like to see what your white blood cell count is like. I know what they are, and I know there are certain ones that I want to see. But all of us, just like we know dogs can be trained to sniff out cancer, all we have to do is introduce them to what the scent is. Imagine our world if elders like myself who have developed their intuitive abilities to the degree that I have were actually out showing people. I'm not talking about walk down the street, because now we've chased it out of our lives through religion, through politics, through you're crazy, through she's the crazy woman, she's the hysterical. Because I want you to know something. I offer as a part of my service HTMA, which is hair tissue mineral analysis. What is trying to read? There we go. Okay. Dopamine is one of those neurotransmitters. When my clients, and I've worked with 4 men that end up with Parkinson's disease, when they had Parkinson's disease, the doctors gave them a medication called Cinnamate. Cinnamate was given to 3 of the men that I worked with, okay? and it is made out of levodopa. So what we're doing is artificially increasing dopamine to the brain. Why is dopamine missing in the first place? I'm going to give you guys a really good nugget here. Are you ready for it? Let me know if you're ready for it down below, because this is really huge. What's involved when you go to the doctor and they want to put you on an antidepressant? Your dopamine levels are low. What's involved when you're sitting there at night and you're like, oh man, I got to start work tomorrow. Tomorrow's Monday. Man, this really sucks. Shit, I got to go back to work tomorrow. All of a sudden, you might get a little more impulsive. You might go buy a cup of coffee. You might go get some ice cream or some vegan ice cream. You might go and start shopping online, or you might do any number of things. But every time you click buy on a website, you get a little dopamine hit. You get a little rush. You're like, woo, I just bought that. That's so cool. I'm so excited to get it, you know? Just like Kim and I, we're going to get our Mighty Nest shipment that we pay $10 or $11, something for around there. And every month we get a little surprise in the mail. There's a link on my website at Naturally with Karen on the bottom of the first page of the website that you can click, and it helps to support me to get into a center sooner for Mighty Nest. And you can buy, I think it's $99 for the whole year, and then once a month for 12 months you'll get this great shipment that comes along. But anyway, we get a dopamine rush. So let's get into it. The dopamine has to have copper to build it. The majority of my clients, they have gotten their hair test, it comes back that they're not sufficient in copper. When they're over copper, they have too much copper flowing through the system, you'll start to see red flecks in the hair. You'll start to see copper flecks. You'll see redheads. You'll see it perhaps in their eyelashes. You might see it in the pubic hair, okay? But when a person has insufficient copper, they cannot continue to make the dopamine. They start to get excessively zinc, and they start to become into Parkinson's disease, or it could look like any other form of neurodegeneration like dementia or Alzheimer's, dysphagia, excessive morbid depression, right? I have one client who's got extreme depression and is on multiple medications. So now we have what? We have the poly pill, which is used mainly for heart issues. I just absolutely feel overwhelmed that we have a poly pill where we can throw 4 medications. Let me take a quick drink here. My cousin, Terry Polo, died of a brain tumor in Cloquet, Minnesota. She lived in Esco, which is one of the outskirts of Cloquet and the northeastern Minnesota. I know in my mind why Terry started getting kind of funny and why people thought she was crazy for a very limited period of time, not most of her life. She was very level, okay? I know why it happened to me for a period of time, and I know why it's happened to a lot of people and why they're dropping off. I can feel it on their head. I can see how they're going to go that way based on their hair test. And I know that now with the advent of 5G, I'm really trying to get to a better space. There we go. We're going to have a whole lot more of it because it's going to exacerbate it. In other words, it's going to multiply it. Because of the diet, because of these toxic elements that we're doing more vaccines and more injections, because of the diet that we have, because of the lifestyle that we have, because these youth, meaning your children, are sitting around being shuttled around in your vehicles. They're sitting in their rooms with laptops and iPads and iPods and gaming systems and, PlayStations. I don't know. It's probably called something else by now. But, my son just turned 24 here this week. And so it was PlayStation and Xbox, and I just absolutely couldn't stand those things, right? And before that, it was the Game Boy. And I oftentimes will, with my closest peeps here, my sis, with Kim, I will say, please listen to me. Don't do those things. I made a horrible mistake. They pattern the brain. The songs in those little games that play over and over, and you can walk by any child, if they don't have a headset on, you can hear them. So what has all this got to do? Your pituitary gland, your hypothalamus, your pineal gland are why, if they're functioning like they're supposed to, you're going to be extremely intuitive. You're going to be so intuitive that no one needs to say, why don't you come pay for my Reiki class? Why don't you come pay for my energetic healing touch? Why don't you come to my apocalypse-proof coaching program? You don't need to do all that. You can learn about these neurotransmitters on your own. You reconnect. There we go. Learn about your pituitary. Just read a little bit about it. Read about your pineal gland. Order your HTMA. I swear, if you order your HTMA with me and it's on sale through tomorrow morning when I get up, I am going to take it off the website and put it back at the $235 price, more than likely. Right now it's $175 for the hair test. So you click, you buy it, I send it out at the post office tomorrow morning, and you get your hair test, and you do it all through the mail, except for the state of New York. You'll have to step outside of New York, so give me another address to mail it to you, and we'll go around that so you get that. I work with people. You will also get a 30-minute coaching session, and I will explain exactly what your patient report says. This is not, you can Google Quack Watch and it'll say, oh, hair testing's probably kind of not really good or whatever. Well, then don't just do that. Don't stop there. Go to PubMed and find out where it's cited in PubMed hard science articles as hair tissue testing, and how I can actually start to really screen your test to find out if you're going to go into cancer because you're oxidizing. I don't know if you remember, but the 70s and 80s, we did a lot of talking about, I'm trying to get out of the sun, it keeps glaring, antioxidants, and everyone was, so big on antioxidants and vitamin C and vitamin E and all these different things that we needed to take. Oh, I'm sorry, the sun is just moving around. Thank you, sun, but it's kind of because it's so cloudy out there, it's making it blinding. Hope you can see me and hope you can hear me okay. I look like I've got the forces with me going on here. Okay, so Rosemary, good to see you. Joanne, good to see you. Joanna. So your pituitary gland has got to excrete that TSH. Rosemary, I just saw you at Whole Foods yesterday, so I'm standing at Whole Foods again. We are developing cysts, nodules, and tumors, and they're going to be exacerbated by more vaccines, more 5G towers, okay? We have people, I know at least 10 people that since I've lived 17 years in the northeast part of Minnesota in Cloquet, that have just died or snapped off with a stroke and an aneurysm, and it seems to be always on the right temporal lobe. Not that it is every single time, but it's quite often the right temporal lobe, okay? So cysts, nodules, and tumors are being grown, and they're being exacerbated by these chemicals. Don't you want to know what they are? That hair tissue testing is going to show you. I've gotten 4 tests back all last week, last strong, and I could see the levels of lead, cadmium, uranium, mercury, okay? I had a consult with a man who's in North Carolina Friday night at 8 o'clock, whose mercury level was extremely high. I was able to say this and this and this and this is likely why you've got the heart problem that you do. Likely. I can't say for sure because I don't want to get, in trouble for making it appear as if I'm trying to practice medicine in a world that's dominated by Western allopathic medicine. Let me take a drink here. Anyway, I went out to meet my son today. He was doing a roofing job in Lincoln Park area of Duluth. I really keep trying to move, but I'm telling you, everywhere I turn, the sun just puts these great rays of light, which is kind of, maybe it's a blessing, I don't know. Your pituitary, your pineal, your hypothalamus are 3 glands in your head. If you're going to be inoculated with aluminum, formaldehyde, and thimerosal, which is a mercury derivative, you're going to shower in halogen-rich water, you're going to miss out on sufficient amounts of iodine and selenium, you're going to be under enormous amounts of stress, losing your mother, disconnected from your mother, feeling abandoned by your mother, feeling the grief of sorrow of missing your mother, especially during those first 3 years, as Steiner points out. That's why we have similar timing on bowel movements and urination between mother and baby. If you didn't notice it, I did, because I was around that movement. I was around moms who were extremely pro-Waldorf. and some that were and some that weren't, but one that ended up being a Waldorf teacher, two that ended up being Waldorf. One runs a Waldorf homeschool group, and one is a Waldorf teacher. So I was around people that were really hardcore, much more than me. In fact, at that time, when my son was a baby, I thought, well, it's a little over the top, it's a little kind of foo-foo. And I worked in law, but I was using all my cash to go to herbal school and massage school and take different forms of yoga and African dance and lots of workshops on African drumming. And I was a shaman, a medicine woman in the making, which means that we produce miracles, meaning the average person doesn't expect to heal lupus or to shrink breast tumors or to get rid of their thyroid problem or to go through, mind-body medicine specifically, right, to heal psoriasis, like my thing instead of, oh, there we go, good. Thanks for being patient, okay? So, Rosemary, Joanna, good to see you guys, Kim. A lot of people have jumped on, jumped off, in order to, to deal with this situation of cysts, nodules, and tumors on the brain. You need to put together a plan. You need to have something more than, well, the doctor has done a brain scan and you... Okay, great. I'm in the store, so maybe it's going to be better in here. So I'm going to try to get over to the little deli over here and sit down. Give me just a moment, please. So I don't know if you guys have any questions, but what it really boils down to, if you will, is that we really need to be taking better care of ourselves. We need to be self-governing. We need to be sustainable. We need to think about the sustainability of our people. We need to think about what we're doing with our children before we have children, instead of trying to figure it out all along the way, okay? So I hope this has been informative. I don't know if you guys have any questions. One really big nugget of this whole thing was that dopamine has to have copper to build that specific neurotransmitter. So if you don't have enough copper and you become excessively high in zinc, we'll find that out on your hair tissue mineral analysis. It's a profile number 2. And if you've had a profile number 2 already, we can do a profile number 3, which compares the results of your last one with your current one. Okay? The ideal is that we want to have you at about a 2.5 in copper. If that copper is really high, you're going to seem like you're not very clear. You're going to be excessively fluid with your emotions. You might be crying. You might be having a lot of anxiety. You might be feeling really unstable. Instead of farming you off to the mental health industry, if you're stable enough to function, order your hair tissue mineral so we can take a look at it and drive down some of that copper or mobilize and excrete it through your liver so we can help you avoid being placed on a medication to stuff your feelings down and hurt your frontal lobes, causing you problems later down the road, okay? So it's a really nice humid day. I think it's supposed to be pretty rainy tomorrow, and I'm scheduled to be on a boat. So I hope it's not going to be too bad tomorrow. That's really what I had to say. The Detox and Heal Your Thyroid book is so crucial because it'll teach you how to detoxify your body. It'll teach you how to power up your thyroid gland. And that has everything to do with what we talked about. The doctors will frequently call that axis the HPA, hippopotamus, pituitary, apple, the HPA axis, which is hypothalamus, pituitary, adrenal axis, which those have to connect and cause your thyroid to do the job that it needs to do. Blood pressure, blood temperature, cold hands and feet, hair, how you think, what's your memory like, what's your energy levels like, how do you feel, what's your sex drive like, what's your immune system like. So many things that when I tell women you've got fibromyalgia, you really need to read my book. If you're a self-help type of a person, you really want to do it, open it up on your computer, make the font nice and big, sit down and enjoy 5 or 6 pages on the book at night, and you'll be well on your way. If you're not a self-help person, you can schedule a coaching session with me at naturallywithkaren.com, and we will meet face-to-face through the video screen on FaceTime or Facebook video or another one. And we'll talk about what's going on after you fill out the wellness form underneath the coaching section. There's a wellness form for humans and dogs, and we'll put together a plan for you. So if your pituitary is not going to function well, your dopamine levels, your copper levels are off, your zinc levels are high, you've got toxic elements going on, and now we've got winter coming here in the United States, if you're listening here, and we've got 5G popping up on us. Then that kind of pulsing and signaling is going to affect you even more. It's going to exacerbate your conditions if you're a person that's already degenerating into a weaker battery. You think about the copper top battery, the Duracell battery, the best battery, hypothetically, right, that you're going to get. You're going to pay more for that battery. The copper top battery is going to be one that you expect to last longer. Well, the same thing is true with your brain. If your copper levels aren't balanced, don't expect to last very long, okay? And this is why a lot of experts are predicting that a lot of our young people are going to go into neurodegenerative illness. They're going to start having more memory issues, just like the lady that I met last week, right? Same age as me. And she said, oh, my memory issues. I said, yeah, you've mentioned that a couple of times. So you don't want memory issues, okay? So hopefully I've covered everything. If there's anything that you feel that I have not covered, someone's sending me a message here, let me know, and I'll answer it before we go. If you're watching this on YouTube, and I hope that you are, please, again, hitting the subscribe button means that I'm able to not have to go through Facebook to do these. I can go live on YouTube once we get to 1,000 subscribers. So I'm going over and trying to also help other people that I watch on YouTube and hit the subscribe button, because otherwise we're not able to do it. The same thing with Pure Luminosity, who's Kim, who I've mentioned here. If we can get her up to 100 subscribers, she's going to be able to also do streams on YouTube, because the rules are changing. So they want to keep the little guy out, and we want to keep us going, because I've got great medicine for you, and I'm going to keep bringing that. So thank you for joining me, and I hope it's been informative.